Hello and welcome to another episode of Sermon Braindump. My name is Scott Dalen, an ELCA pastor in Southwest Iowa, and I present these videos every week for a couple of different reasons. Pardon me, a little frog in my throat there. The first of which is just to take my brain out of the mode of background work over the course of the week and move into the process of writing and preparing my sermon that I will preach to my congregation for the weekend. That is the first reason. And the second is just to allow you, the viewer, who have come across this video for whatever reason brought you here today, whether you are a regular viewer and you kind of tune in all the time, or if you happen to just stumble across this for once, to allow you to gain some different insight into the assigned text for the week. So that is why I do these. This particular Sunday, which is February 24th, 2019, the seventh Sunday after Epiphany. Our gospel lesson comes from Luke chapter 6, verses 27 through 38. Now, if you happen, pardon me, that phlegm is still there in my throat. If you happen to catch last week's video, this is a direct continuation. And we are kind of still in the same boat where we were that I talked about last week in terms of the season of Epiphany. I mentioned this is the seventh Sunday after Epiphany, and that's getting really, really, really lengthy. Normally, Epiphany does not go this long, and we are typically into the season of Lent by now. But if you're familiar with the way that Epiphany works, it's all based on where Easter falls. And I talked about this last week, so you can refer back to that if you're curious. But so where Easter falls, you go forward 40 days, and that gives us the season of Lent. And Epiphany goes from January 6th until the beginning of Lent. So this particular time, with Easter being so late this year, Epiphany has gotten quite long. And since there's a 3-year cycle of the lectionary, these particular texts that we're having these last couple of weeks are ones that normally we don't have and we do not preach on. So from that standpoint, these are some texts that usually we won't hear in the context of worship. Not that they're bad texts by any means; they're important, but that's just kind of a word on that. Pardon me. Got to wipe the nose a little bit there. So where we are at, again, continuation. This is the portion of Luke's gospel known as the Sermon on the Plain, or I think it's important to call it the Sermon on the Level Place. That's kind of a pretty direct translation of the Greek of, as we hear earlier on in chapter 6, about a third of the way through chapter 6, when Jesus comes down off the mountain, having just identified the 12 disciples. And he's surrounded by a great crowd of people from all around Judea and Jerusalem. And we hear also people from the region of Tyre and Sidon, which is a mix of Jewish and Gentile people that are in this great crowd. I kind of talked about this last week, but I'm highlighting again because in my congregation, we actually ended up having winter weather last weekend and did not have worship. So my sermon kind of went unused for the most part, but this is all connected, so I'm wanting to go there again. The first thing Jesus does is he heals. He heals people of diseases. He casts out demons. He frees them from what hinders them. And then he begins teaching. And I think that's an important lesson for us to remember, that first we are brought in, we are freed from what hinders us. And I want to speak generically about our idea that we are freed from our brokenness, from our sinfulness. That's the salvation given to us through Christ. And so we are brought into relationship. We belong first, and then the teaching begins. We begin to learn what we believe or how we act. So that's kind of an important point that I'm probably going to go with. Then, again, this was last week. The first thing Jesus talks about is the Beatitudes, also present in Matthew's gospel, but in a different form. We have the blessed bees, and we also have the woes here in Luke. And what I kind of worked at last time around is that in the kingdom that Jesus is bringing about, the kingdom of heaven, or the kingdom of God, that we are on a level playing field, and that God himself comes to us on that same level playing field in the person of Jesus, and then, of course, in the presence of the Holy Spirit, if we want to look at it that way too. And that's a really important point that I want to really bring and focus on. So I'm probably going to highlight that from last week and bring it into this week. So how about we go ahead and read now this next portion, and then we'll talk about it some more. So Jesus has done the blessings and the woes, and now we're picking up at chapter 6, 27 through 38. Jesus said, "But I say to you that listen, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you, pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Golden rule, ding, ding, ding. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good, and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. All right, so that's the thing. A few things about this that I want to highlight, and it kind of comes into this whole like even playing or level playing field, level place theme that is dancing around in my head. There's two trains of thoughts about these statements that Jesus is making, particularly in terms of like how to act and or how to react to when someone is smiting you. That whole turn the other cheek or give your shirt and cloak and thing. One is that Jesus is on one hand being literal in the fact that respond to violence, respond to persecution, respond to whatever meekly, and basically say, okay, if that's how you're going to treat me that way, because that's to be expected. I think there's some credit to that, but I don't necessarily like that interpretation, because that tends to kind of be like, well, be a floor mat. If somebody's going to treat you like crap, let them treat you like crap. Which I don't know. I don't know. But the other side of this that I've heard is a little bit more subversive, and it catches my attention. Now I've done some reading and I've heard some people speak about the social aspect of this, and that there was a very, very distinct social ladder in Jesus' time in terms of where you fell on that ladder, that there were different levels and you were in your place and that's where you were. And if someone was above you on the social ladder or the social stature or whatever we want to say it, they could beat you, especially if it's like a master to a slave. But if you're going to do that, for whatever reason, they always used one hand. And I forget why, but that's an aspect of this. And the whole, like, if someone strikes you on the cheek, well, here's the deal. If someone is going to strike the person who's lower level than they will backhand them. And I think it's with the right hand, but they'll backhand them across the cheek. What Jesus is saying is when he says, turn the other cheek, I need to explain a little bit more. Sorry. Squirrel. I got excited. So, if the person's on equal standing from you and you're going to strike them, you hit them with your fist. So it's either a backhand this way or it's a fist this way. And then you would never strike someone who's a higher level than you. But so Jesus is saying, if someone backhands you, turn the other cheek, because then if they're going to hit you again, they have to punch you and they have to treat you like an equal. So you are placing yourself on the same level as them, or they're acknowledging you on the same level as them. Now, the next one, the whole, like, if someone takes your cloak, give them your shirt also. It's garment and I don't know, translation, whatever. So this goes back to the idea of nakedness being what's the word I'm looking for? Offensive is not the right word, but it brings shame upon the person who sees it. Now we tend to think of nakedness as like if somebody's naked, the shame is upon them, or they have no shame. But in Jesus' day, it was the opposite. That if you witness someone's nakedness, that's a shame upon you, or public nakedness, I should say. And so Jesus is saying, if someone tries to take your cloak, go all the way and like give them your shirt, make yourself naked in front of them, because that puts the shame that they're trying to place upon you upon them. So it's evening that playing field, and that really kind of seems to be what Jesus is about in this whole situation. And I really kind of dig that. And it goes on. Jesus then talks. We got the golden rule: treat others as you would be treated. Don't give expecting to get something back. This is not the reciprocal circle of what I do for you, I expect to get something out of it. It's just give freely. Give freely of yourself. Give respect. Give love. Give resources, whatever. Give freely, and don't give for the purpose of getting it back again. Just give it because you have it and you can share it. That seems to be what it is. Now, where's this pointing? I had this idea, and I think I kind of talked about this a little bit last week too, that in the kingdom of heaven, which Jesus has brought near to us, which is here now and yet is not yet. It's that whole now and not yet thing that I like to talk about. That God is actively working to bring that kingdom into fruition. Jesus is a part of that, but it's ongoing, and I think we see that throughout the overarching narrative within the Bible of God continuing to bring humanity and reality forward towards something. And I think that's where it's going. And we are invited into the work. And this is something that I get really excited about. It probably is coming through because I feel like I'm bouncing off the walls. Maybe I had too much coffee this morning. I don't know. But so we are invited into the work. And maybe, just maybe, and I'm not saying this is the way it is, but this is kind of how I understand things and how I look at this, that through our salvation, we are invited into this work of living the reality of the kingdom of the not yet now. And is the world there yet? No, it's not. But maybe, just maybe, as we live our lives treating one another like we are on a level playing field, like we are all equal in the eyes of God, which we are, if we act like that, maybe that is how the world is coming towards this eventual fruition of the kingdom of heaven that Jesus talks about, the not yet part of it. We live our lives now as if the reality of that kingdom is already here. And as we do so, we are helping God bring that about. And I love that. That's exciting. That speaks into how do we respond in our life of faith. It's always important to note, especially in the Lutheran understanding of salvation, it's not salvation by works. We're not earning anything with how we act, with how we treat one another. We are responding to God's grace. We are responding to the gift which is already given to us, because we're all, through Christ, we're already put on that even level playing field. But then we get to participate in bringing this whole thing forward. And isn't that awesome? Isn't that exciting? I think so. And now I got to write a sermon about it. So that's what's happening in this passage, in this aspect. And if you have thoughts or questions or comments, throw them down in the comment section. We will continue the conversation that way. Now, as I wrap up here, I'm going to do something a little different that I haven't done before. If you are a regular viewer, if you get something out of this and you find this to be a benefit, first off, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for giving of your time. Thank you for continuing to follow this. I do these videos as an outreach of my congregation. They enable me to do it. And this is an aspect of our little corner of the church doing something bigger and wider. And if you want to be a part of that, if you want to support that, my congregation has online donations. Now, I don't want to pressure anyone. If you don't want to do this, you can just cut it off now and you can keep listening and you can keep tuning in, or you can never come back to my channel again and that would be okay. That's up to you. But if you appreciate this and it's a benefit to you and you would like to support it, I'm going to put a link to my congregation's website that has an online donation page. And if you would like to donate towards that, thank you very much. It's a blessing. If not, again, no pressure. So look for that down in the comment section if that's something that you'd like to be a part of. Otherwise, either way, I hope you have a blessed week and we will catch you next time.